real relationship doesn't begin until you get over the fantasy of it. We're living in a prolonged adolescence. I knew how to be a good son. I knew how to be a good brother to my sisters, but I had no idea how to be an intimate partner.
Hey, Bryan. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Hi, Beatrice. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, so I wanted to give everybody just kind of a backstory as to why I have you on and why I'm so excited for this conversation today. I actually bought one of Bryan's books, Choose Her Every Day or Leave Her, when it came out a couple years ago, and it really changed my perspective on men, I think, in general. Bryan and I were talking before we press record about this, but just how I think years ago, we weren't really having the conversation about what men were struggling with, what they were going through. I think there's so many expectations on men that we're not even fully aware of. Like, we have all these expectations of them, but they're not really equipped to kind of live up to some of those expectations in many ways, or how they were raised, or societal things. So it was such a great view into that for me. And I think I was going through a breakup when I got this book, and it just gave me, it was honestly kind of healing. Like, I knew the relationship was over, and it wasn't something that I was like, oh, I'm trying to get him back, but it was like, this makes so much sense now. Like, it gave me, like a view into that. And so it's such a great book. If anyone is out there and wants to read it, it's kind of written like essays, right? There's different,
Yeah,
you can kind of start wherever. Like, you can literally just open it up and read it, which I really loved about that. So, so I'm really honored to have you on, because I read this book before I even had a podcast, before I was doing coaching. Like, you were kind of one of the first ones I dove into in terms of men's work. And so this is just kind of a full circle moment for me. I'm really honored to have you here and to get a chance to kind of pick your brain on the relational world. But I would love to hear a bit about kind of your background, just so my viewers, my listeners kind of know who you are. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Beatrice. First off, I'm really I'm delighted. It's always healing, actually, for me to hear also how, like, these words, my work, has helped someone else through a difficult time. Because the truth is, I wrote a lot of that book as a result of my own heartache.
Yeah.
As a result of my own, a lot of the essays that I wrote were born of my of pain. Pain and confusion and disorientation.
Yeah.
And but I didn't write a lot of those in the midst of all of that. I wrote those looking back, going, wow, okay, so that's what I was going through, or that's what I didn't understand, or that's what I wish someone had taught me, or that's what was actually going on for me. I start the whole book. The first chapter, the first chapter title is "No One Ever Taught Me How to Be a Man." And I wrote that in my mid-30s, maybe my late 30s, actually. No, I think I wrote that in my later, it would have been my late 30s. I am 51 now. And I start a relationship book with that chapter. No one ever taught me how to be a man. And again, I couldn't know that, in fact, I would say the girlfriend that I was with for about 5 years, who that relationship just brought me to my freaking knees, like, just gutted me. By the time I was like 36, she would say this thing to me that was really hurtful and not helpful, but there was truth in it. She would say, "You're just a boy, not a man."
Oof.
That is obviously not a kind or even helpful thing to say. And I do not encourage any woman to say that to their partner. There's nothing right about saying that. And though it is pointing to a deep truth, a reality that a lot of men are living in, which is we're living in a prolonged adolescence. For many men, we don't hit the limitations. And this is certainly my story. We don't hit the limitations of our adolescent ways of thinking and being until our late 30s at the earliest. Many guys don't start until their 40s or even 50s, and some men never.
I know. I know.
never transition out of their adolescent ways of thinking,
Yeah.
and we can explore what I mean by that, but um that was my story. I had a master's degree. By the way, I always find this hilarious when I talk about this. I had a freaking master's degree in human relations, Beatrice, from the
Isn't that
University of
so
Oklahoma.
ironic?
Like from a legitimate university, University of Oklahoma, a master's in human relations and organizational development. And I sucked. Look, I think I had great friendships.
Yeah.
I knew how to be a good son. I knew how to be a good brother to my sisters. I knew how to be a good friend, even to women.
Mm-hmm.
But I had no idea how to be an intimate partner to a woman. And so, that book is, and that book is not just born of personal experience. It's also born of by the time I was 36 and that relationship was ending, I was just like, I can't keep sucking at relationships for the rest of my life. I need to learn something. I need to figure out not just what is wanted of me in relationship, but what the hell do I actually want myself?
It's huge.
What am I doing this for? And so, that book is born of also, then turning it into a coaching practice. And so thousands of hours of my own study and working with other people. And then, of course, definitely my own teaching stories from my own pain and heartache as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that's where so much of this work comes from. It's always so personal. I felt very similar. It was like 2019 that I was going through another breakup, and it was like kind of one of my first like bigger breakups. And I was like, I don't think I know what a good relationship looks like. Like, I don't even know, like, I couldn't figure out why this wasn't working, because I was like, but I'm trying. I'm working hard. Like, I'm
good intentions. You got great intentions.
Exactly. I'm like, I don't get it. Why is this so dysfunctional? And it was the first time I started actually like looking at myself like, well, what am I contributing to this relationship, right? What are my limitations? What do I don't, what do I know? What do I not know? And so that's kind of when I also dove into this work and got into like John Gottman theories, because I was really curious. I really wanted to know like what made relationship work, like, and what made it not work. Like this, people study this. There's got to be some commonalities here. And so it was really, really fascinating. And again, so much of it came down to kind of your self-work, starting with you and not the external person, but really understanding, then I started getting into like, family background. And I was like, oh, well, this makes so much sense why I act this way, or why I shut down, or all those things. And, but yeah, I think so much of the work that we do is just stems from that, from just kind of facing yourself, and not in always the best way.
Yeah, and I think the era of just the expert on high telling other people how things are supposed to be, I think we're kind of getting over that. We want to hear also so you're an expert, but what's your story? Did you just learn this in a book, in a class? Did somebody else teach you that's how things are supposed to be, or is this, or how is this applied to your actual life? And I think that's why the combination of both. I think we still need so-called, I love what Esther Perel said about relationship experts. He's like, there's no such thing as a relationship expert. What there is someone who has thought about relationships a lot.
Yep.
Somebody who has studied it and thought about it a lot. That's what a relationship expert is. It doesn't mean they've mastered relationship. I tell people this all the time. Like I make mistakes with my wife every single day. I make tiny mistakes every single day. And so, and I think a lot of people over the years have put me on a pedestal, thinking that, oh, Bryan has something figured out because just, what they've read of my work and everything. And yeah, look, I've learned some things, but, learning something and applying it, those are two different activities.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and I'm in it just as much as anybody is.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I loved the book so much, like genuinely, because it felt real. Like it felt like lived experience and not theory. And that's what I think to me spoke so much, and why I love your work and why I've, followed you for so many years is you're just real. You're like, this is what's actually going on. This is what's happening. And so, I really appreciated that about you. and just your talks. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts throughout the years, and I've always appreciated that. It was always grounded in reality, and not
Yeah.
it's not heady. It's not just like theory, and which theory and all that is great. We love psychology. I've read a ton of the books, like love it all. But I think the lived experience is, I think, what sets you apart, and why I love your work. But
Yeah.
um, and saying that, I do want to hear a little bit about kind of your current relationship too. I think that's something I've been obviously following along with you. But I know that you kind of had a really pivotal moment in your relationship with
Yeah.
your wife. That really shaped you and kind of changed the trajectory for you in a different way, because you, at this point, you had already been working in this world, like you said. But I'd love to start there, because I feel like that personal experience really shaped a lot for you, and I think it'll really kind of take us into the direction of just the work that we kind of have to do to be ready for that right person for us, or that
Yeah.
person that we're like, oh my God, this is it. This is an amazing person, you know.
Well, it's interesting. Ironically, as you're talking about that, what I'm really present to is that book, Choose Her Every Day or Leave Her. The first half of that book was born in the pain of the past. The breakups, the failed relationships, what I didn't understand, what I got wrong, what I missed, what I overlooked, etc. When I met Sylvie, it was 2015. It's about 10 years ago. I was like a world-renowned relationship coach, author. My blogs were blowing up all over the world. Like, I was the guy. I had relationship figured. I didn't nail it. I was single, but I had figured out a lot of things. I was writing about it. It was resonating. It was like, I got this. And then I met Sylvie, and whoa, you know, holy shit. Now, how do I apply this? And what does that even mean? And, immediately, I tell couples, because I do couples coaching as well. And I tell couples, like, if y'all are being honest with each other, you're going to get into conflict fast. It's the couples that aren't being really honest about what's really going on for them that don't have much conflict, especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
And, Sylvie and I were both committed to, because we both had been through painful experiences. We were committed to a different kind of relationship. But oh boy, you think that means rainbows and unicorns and, oh, just sunshine and, oh, it's going to be awesome and amazing. And, oh my goodness. A therapist said something to us, I think on the other side of our breakup, because we broke up about 4 or 5 months into the relationship, and then we got back together a few weeks later. But she said, the fact that all of this is coming up for the two of you doesn't necessarily mean that you don't feel safe in the relationship. It's actually because you do feel safe. You feel safe at a deep, deep, deep level. That's why all of this stuff that in previous relationships couldn't come up, because that deep safety wasn't there. So yeah, there was a lot of fighting, there was a lot of stuff going on, but you weren't even talking about the real things. You weren't even, right? It's because you have a deep, deep safety with each other.
Yeah.
It's like almost subconscious, like, there's like a heart knowing that, like, this is a safe place. Okay, here comes all the shit that never got to come up before.
Yeah.
And it was talk about confronting, right? It was confronting to both of us, even though, Sylvie's the one that ended our relationship 4 months in. The reality is just as much was coming up for her as was for me.
Yeah.
Our attachment styles, my avoidance was like screaming, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this, and her kind of fearful, her fearful avoidance, which is kind of an anxious avoidance, is sort of a
present. I'm also that. So I was like, I totally understand why she left.
Yeah. She was also like, I want this, but I can't do it. I'm out, and so, it was difficult. It was confronting. It was confusing. And yeah, we got back together after just a few weeks apart, and a lot of serendipity made that happen. But we still, for the next few years, we had to work through so much. I say we've been together for over 10 years now. And as I look back at our journey, I would say it took us 7 years to get really good at being with each other.
Wow.
7 years. And that's two people who are really trying. That's people who've written books about this shit
Yes.
and work with other people to support them on these journeys. And, so,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and I think we have such a misconception of relationship that because you meet the right person, that it's going to be easy. There'll be ease to it. And usually there's this. I would say there's probably this like peace that you feel, right? No, it's like a deep knowing, a deep safety.
right. Yeah.
But because of that, I think, like you said, a lot of the stuff comes up, and I think a lot of people, I think we're just, I think it's societal for so many reasons, but it's when we want to quit. We're like, oh, it's getting hard. We're working through too many things. It's not meant to be. It's not right. And I think we quit on people so early and so quickly and so easily. But the best marriages, I did a marriage series on this podcast where I interviewed couples. I think I interviewed about like 8 different couples. And the best marriages are the ones that actually worked through the difficult things. And their marriages are incredibly strong. I have people that were married 30 years, 10 years, 15 years. And it's just, yeah, I wish more people could understand that, especially in the dating scene, because especially in the dating scene, we're so quick to like, hit the eject button, at the first sign of some discomfort. And the fact that you said it's taken you 7 years to really get good at the relationship, I think is so real, though. It's so real to like the work that it takes. And I think the beauty of marriage, like it's really intended to sanctify you. Like it shows you a mirror of who you are, and it shows you all the areas that you're like, you still got to work on these things,
Yeah. It's fact.
Yeah.
It's fact. It is not a path for the weak of will or timid of heart.
Yeah. And I'm curious too, when you guys did break up, what was kind of the reason, or what was kind of I know you said Sylvie had ended it first. What was kind of her hesitation there?
Well, I would let her speak for herself on her, stuff was coming up for her, and that I was a trigger for, and likewise she was for me. And I think for me, I mean, look, we were doing this in it was a co-conspiracy, right? It's not like I did something and she didn't want to take it, and so broke up with me, and then I had to fix something and win her back. No, that's not at all. Stuff was coming up for both of us. I was already in a place like, God damn, I don't know if I can do this. Like, this is hard. Like,
Yeah.
What am I signing up for? And she could feel that. She could totally feel that. And also then her stuff is coming up, whatever it is, her coming from a Middle Eastern culture and a communal culture, and all of the intensity that comes with a communal culture. And it's like, also in her is like, oh my God, can I do this? As a woman, to give up independence and to put herself in the care of a man, when throughout her culture, men are not very safe creatures to put your dependence on. So, those two dancing together, and I'm a bit, go down with the Titanic type. I'm loyal to the end. I'll take this ship to the bottom of the ocean. But during our breakup, what became so clear to me was, there's a transition that for a relationship to succeed, two people must navigate. And many people never navigate it. And which is why a lot of relationships are really just long-term dissatisfaction spaces. And that transition is going from two individual one-person systems, hanging out with each other, to becoming a two-person system, a single two-person system.
Yeah.
And especially our culture doesn't teach that. We teach hyper-individualism.
Yep.
Every man is an island, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, all that stuff. And we certainly don't teach empathy. We don't teach relational being, So what happened for me in our breakup is that like my hyper individualistic nature, that part of me that wanted to kind of cross my arms and say, your upset is not my problem.
Yeah.
Whatever's going on for you, got nothing to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
Figure that shit out for yourself. I'll be here when you're ready, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, that was not going to be able to stand. That was going to keep me actually out of relationship for the rest of my life
Mm-hmm.
if I were to hold on to that stance, that way of just saying like your feelings are not my problem. And so during our breakup, I had to really come to terms with, okay, so here I am, yeah, super successful in ways that I never even imagined I could be. As a renowned relationship, this and that, whatever, writer, and yet all of that was meaningless. It didn't mean it. It was pointless. It was like, who fucking cares? The love that I yearned to receive and give had gone from my life, and all of this sort of structural stuff going on. It literally felt empty and meaningless. And experiencing that was so uh it was so revealing. It was such a smack in my to my being. Like it just woke me up to what matters more is not just what I think I know, but it's what I can live in my body.
Yeah.
I can know all these great relational things and ideas we were talking about earlier. I can know a lot of theory, but if
Mm-hmm.
I can't live this, what the hell am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
So when we got back together, partly because we had an opportunity to talk, and she could hear the part of me that was surrendered um to how would I say it? She I guess for the first time she really heard me come out of my head and be in my heart. Really speaking not from what I think I know, but what I'm committed to practicing.
Yeah.
And and then of course that was just the beginning of a whole new challenging journey.
Mm-hmm.
But things have never been things have been different ever since.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I think for a lot of men, it's hard for them to get out of their head and into their heart and
We
to
don't even
kind
know
of
what that means.
no. That was the next thing I was going to say is I don't think
Yeah.
guys they actually even know like what that really means. You ask a guy how they feel and they're like, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm great. Everything's good." Like it's like
Yeah.
a foreign place for them.
Yeah, we don't even know what that means. It's an interesting concept, but we don't even know what it means. In the work that I do with men, one of the first things we always do when I gather a group of men is we do a check-in, and a check-in is just is part of what a check-in is. Just 30 seconds of just talking about what's happening in my body.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling thirsty. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling horny. I'm feeling tired. Most men can't do that when they are first invited to do that. They'll say, it's good to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a long day at work. I just, let's see, I'm full because I just ate a big turkey sandwich. They can't just stay, or I feel a little bit anxious. They minimize. We either minimize or we just don't talk about it at all. What's happening in our body.
Yeah.
And over time, men discover what a fundamentally important practice that is,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to just say, I'm angry, or I'm horny. And not I'm horny because we haven't had sex in 3 weeks and we need to do something about that. We need to fix it. No, 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 no. Or I'm angry because, my boss is a dick or this or that. No, 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 no. Just stay right there. You're angry, or you're horny, or you're tired.
Mm-hmm.
You're tired and also you're energized. Wow, look at that. It's like you have both at this, like it's a whole new world that opens up.
Mm.
And that it's a foundation for us to then actually be in our hearts and be in our bodies when we have conversations with our partners that are game changing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's interesting because I've noticed with my clients too, it's a lot of people struggle with this. And I'm sure I know it's a larger struggle for men, but it's something I've noticed a lot in some of my female clients too nowadays too. A lot of the avoidance or the fearful avoidant is usually what most of my clientele is, and it's yeah, it's so interesting to watch because I'll ask, well, what did you feel in that moment? And then it's all theory and head. It's like they can't drop into that. And I know Brene Brown wrote a really great book, and she describes a bunch of different feelings and words. And
Mm.
it's like, I think even just as a society, we haven't really been equipped with even the right vocabulary,
Oh
you know?
yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
it's,
I'm sorry. I was reminded of a
yeah,
podcast I heard. I can't remember. It was, I think the human brain, something about the brain and studying different cultures. And like, if we don't have words for emotions, we literally can't feel those emotions.
yeah,
If we
yeah.
don't have the language for it, we can't even
Hmm.
identify it.
Hmm.
And a lot of men, um, when they first start doing this kind of work, they need a piece of paper with a list of emotional words on it.
That's what I give my clients. I give them like positive and negative. I'm like, here's the sheet. Now tell me what you feel. No, kidding. But yeah, we don't even know the right words. We don't even have, you know. So it's like, yeah, you're telling a guy go from your head to your heart. They're like, I don't even what? Like,
What the hell does that even mean?
you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Something I found a really, interesting this morning. I opened your book and I literally randomly opened to this page. And something that I heard you say in a podcast about your breakup, was that there was a part of you that wasn't really leaving and cleaving to a partner. It was really, you were like, I'm a single person in a relationship. And you
Yeah.
still had the single mentality. You mentioned it earlier, like I was still like, oh, your feelings, like I don't want to deal with them. I don't, you deal with them. That's your thing.
Yeah.
And again, it's this hyper independence that I think as a
Yeah.
society we glorify, right?
Yeah.
Especially for women too. It's like, oh, Miss Independent, all of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I want to talk about this concept because I don't think this is talked about a lot,
Hmm.
is grieving singleness. And it's something you wrote about in this book. And I'm so glad that I flipped to this page because I was talking to somebody not that long ago about this, because I think it's so important for us to do that, to grieve the single life. And
Yeah.
I think, a lot, I'm 35. A lot of my friends were all in our, mid to late 30s. And a lot of us are just now, in a relationship or getting married or, starting this new life, this new chapter of
Mhm.
life at maybe an older age than maybe most people. But most people got
Mhm.
married younger back in the day. And the hard thing about getting married when you're a little bit older is you're so set in your ways. You've got your own apartment, you've got your space, your things. You're like, everything's your way. You've built a life entirely around you. And I think a lot of people struggle in relationship because they're still stuck in the single mentality. I'm
Yeah.
still single. I'm a singular human. And
Yeah.
so I just want to talk about that idea of how do we grieve our singleness
Mhm.
as we enter into a new relationship? Because there's got to be, I actually, Esther Perel said this in a podcast. She said, with every choice comes loss, every choice.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I
Yeah.
always think about that because
Right.
choosing to be in a relationship,
Yep.
there's a loss. You do have to say
That's right.
goodbye to a part of your life. And I don't think people do that enough. And I think a lot of relational issues stem from that because we're still thinking as a singular person and we're not thinking as a we.
Yeah.
Um, but I know that was something for you too, that was kind of, that needed to be a shift for you in your relationship. So how did that even
Yeah.
come about for you?
Well, like most things, it came about by looking backwards
Mm.
and realizing, oh my God, that's part of, at least part of what was happening for me back then. I was
Yeah.
terrified of leaving behind a life that actually, it's wonderful to be admired
Hmm.
by the world for my my knowledge and my, oh, this guy's got relationship stuff figured out. Oh, and as a single man, I get to travel. I get to just go wherever I want to go and be that guy. Oh, it's the best. And now, though, I now I'm in relationship with somebody who, by the way, has different sensitivities than I have, who has different ideas around privacy than I have. For example, I'm an open book. Literally, I've written books about my journey, two of them.
Yeah.
And uh, my wife, especially at that time, hadn't done any of that. She was quite the opposite. She was very, very private publicly. And so now there's this tension between, well, how am I going to keep doing my work if I have different like, I want to write about my journey, and this woman is part of my journey. And she says, well, you don't get to tell my story. I'm like, well, but I'm telling my story. You just happen to be in it. She's like, well, it doesn't work. Here we are off to the, like, what the fuck? How do we do this?
Yeah.
And how do I be me? That's like the big question. How do I be me inside of the new limitations that
Yeah.
definitely come with relationship?
Mm-hmm.
And, I said earlier, prolonged adolescence, like a lot of men, especially, we
Yes.
live a prolonged adolescence. And this is partly what I'm talking about. In adolescence, we don't want to take responsibility for anybody else. We're just trying to figure out, who the hell am I? What I care about? What matters to me in the world? It's in our adolescence, we're all about me.
Yeah.
And that's appropriate. That's as it should be. We're supposed to be asking these kinds of questions. Who am I in relationship to the world? Who am I in relationship to the cosmos? Like, we're supposed to be confronting all these big questions about identity, etc., what we stand for, what matters. But, to be in a healthy relationship, like, we kind of have to be beyond a lot of that. We have to be willing. There's this great line in this book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, about which is a book about masculine archetypes, psychological archetypes, and especially the difference between, like, the evolution from adolescent archetypes to mature adult archetypes. And they say, the authors say this line that's stuck with me ever since: as adults, we learn to take responsibility even for that which we are not responsible.
Mm.
I'm going to say that again, because that right there, I think, is a key to healthy, functioning relationships. We are willing to take responsibility even for that which is not our responsibility. Right?
That is just controversial in and of itself. If you think about that, our society, I was like, our society teaches the opposite, but that's what relationships push you into and require.
No wonder we're broken down.
Exactly. That's what's required.
Exactly. Our society is in a shit show right now because no one wants to take responsibility really for anything. Actually, they just want to impose their worldview on everyone else and expect that to be the solution that we all need. 100%. And nobody's practicing curiosity about each other. Nobody's really listening. There's no one's wanting to be flexible, to dance with these different, like, and that's what's required in relationship. We have to, I have to, if my wife is upset or frustrated about something, even if I don't agree with the cause for it, I have to be willing to say, okay, well, let me just sit with this. Let's be with this. Let's see what's really going on here. And like, your hurt and pain is also mine now, because we're in a partnership. It's not just yours and I'm going to do my thing and let you figure it out by yourself. Yeah. No, it's ours. And again, we can tussle and navigate and try to figure out, what's really at the root of it and this and that. And I think that definitely has its place and is important in various ways. But I don't get to just say your pain is not mine. Mm-hmm. That doesn't work in relationships, right? That doesn't work. I forget the question that we're diving into here.
Oh, we were talking about kind of grieving your singleness as you enter in a relationship, singleness. Or just or grieving, the singleness, or just the singular version of yourself,
right?
Which goes into this. This is part of it.
So these are some of the psychological maturations that we have to go through, right? The willingness to not only care about myself, but now I have have to. And I say have to, you have to care about, your impact. And so there is a letting go of, a lot of men, especially, resist relationship because it feels like a trap. Mm-hmm. It feels limiting. I'm working with a couple where, I'll speak in general terms, no details, but they're struggling, and one of the husband's fantasies is just being in an open relationship, for example, right? And he thinks that that's the way forward. But I challenge him on that. Not that I'm against open relationships. I'm not against open relationships at all. I'm against every people got to find their own way. I am suspicious of them. I'm very suspicious. I do think that in many cases they are just a run from intimacy,
Yeah.
a run, an unwillingness to grieve,
Mm-hmm.
right? To grieve youth, to grieve the freedom of our adolescence, where
Mm-hmm.
again, in our adolescence, we have to be free to kind of find out who am I,
Yeah.
whether it's travel, experiment, do different things,
Yeah.
to really come to terms and clarity around who am I. We have to have a kind of freedom. Um, and I think that's in relationships, a lot of people don't start doing that work until they've been in the relationship for 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, now we're going to really have some problems.
Well, yeah, and I think when we don't grieve that, that's what happens. Or we don't even think about it. It's like 10 years down the road, we're in a marriage and now we're wanting an open relationship. Now we want to be outside of our marriage. Now we want to go travel, and that's what we call midlife crises, right? It's like we didn't get to experience that or allow ourselves to experience maybe what freedom feels like to everybody. It's different to everybody. Maybe it's traveling, maybe it's living that life, and then in the marriage 10 years later, we're like, oh, well, now I want that because we never actually let that go and grieved it at one point
Yeah.
and enjoyed it and honored it for what it was.
And I think also as we age, I'm 51, as we age, yeah, I remember when I was a teenager, I went the military, even right after the military in my mid-20s. Oh, world was my oyster. So many possibilities, infinite possibilities. I'm standing at the crossroads of life. I can go in 1,000 different directions.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really true anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to some degree, sure, but I'm married for 10 years. I've got a business that I have, 15 years of momentum in, work that I love. I have clients that I work with. Like I've created a niche, I've created a lane, and I'm driving in that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what that requires, though? There are other dreams that I have to let die.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to be a professional drummer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a badass drummer, Beatrice.
I
I
didn't
could
know
have
that
been.
actually.
Yep, I got a drum set in my garage.
Love it.
But I'm never going to be that. And there's a part of me that has to grieve that, the loss of that. That dream is over. That's not going to happen for me. There are other things, just losses along the way, that I have to grieve if I'm going to go on with my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, especially though, getting into relationship, like the cultural narrative is like it's a great thing. We should all want it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's true. I think that is a great thing. But yes, there is a loss that comes with that,
Yeah.
and if we don't make space to grieve that loss, well, we go to war in the couple, right? I see this also in with new parents. You have a child, and again, I work a lot with men, so I see a lot of what men go through. Men that are new fathers is some of the hardest years of their lives, because again, they're so riddled with confusion. Of course, they love their child, but holy fuck, how do I'm still not fulfilled in my professional aims, and now I have to take care of this little baby that's taking me away from my professional aims, and also I have a wife who's now more mother than lover.
Mm-hmm.
All of this stuff comes up, and if the mom, if his wife doesn't understand that, and she feels his confusion, and if she's in the stance of, well, you shouldn't be confused, this should be the happiest thing that's ever happened to you, and he's sitting over here going, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
It's a recipe for war.
Mm-hmm.
And I see this happen, and so again, grief has to be a part of our ongoing practice. One of the authors and elders that I love his work, his name is Stephen Jenkinson. He wrote a book called Die Wise. He worked with a lot of dying people over the years. He says we are a death phobic and grief illiterate culture. We don't know how to grieve. We're illiterate. We're on to the next thing. It's like, oh, we got the relationship. Great. Let's celebrate. Oh, I got a new job. Great. Let's celebrate. Oh, I'm moving to a new city. Great. That's a new life. What about the friends we're leaving behind? What about even when you get into a new relationship, you don't have the same amount of time for the friends that you used to hang out with.
Yep.
I mean, not only do you have some grieving to do, but by the way, so do your friends. because they don't get you as much as they used to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just we have no language for it. We have no awareness of it. And so all of that grief, Francis Weller says, grief unmetabolized turns bitter.
Mm.
Turns bitter.
Yep. Yep.
And I think this happens to a lot of long-term relationships because we can't grieve the death of a dream that we had to put aside for the relationship, or the death of an independence that we no longer get to fully express, right? Because every relationship has limitations. Yeah. Whatever, the death of an identity, the acceptance of my partner as a human. They're not the fantasy that I thought they would be. They're an actual human who farts, who sometimes says things that are embarrassing in public, who, whatever, who turns away when you want them to turn towards you, like whatever. They're just a human. We can't grieve that. We get bitter.
Yep.
And that turns into resentment. That turns into cynicism. It rots the relationship from the inside.
Yeah, and this is something too with clients of mine that we've had to go through. Sometimes we have to even grieve the relationship, even with family. It's not even just romantic relationship, but that's a big thing that I bring in with clients is, sometimes let's say with our family, we have an idea of the mother that we wanted that we never really had, and instead of accepting that, or the father that we never had, right? Yeah. We start to now have resentment that they're not what we wanted them to be. And it's like, even in that, like my clients get so much, like you get so much relief when you can actually just grieve the mother you never had, the father that you never had. Like there's so much in life. And I think I love this concept of grief in the sense that there's so much release in it. It's not just grieving death. I think that's what people think. It's like either a breakup or it's like someone dies. It's the only time I get to grieve. That's the only time we consider grief. Yeah. But there's so many parts of our lives that require grief so that we can move forward, Yeah. And it's like, if we can grieve, like, let's say the relationship we never had, or the mother we never had, or the father, or whatever that is, then we can actually accept the thing we do have. But when we don't let go of this thing, then we're not actually present to the thing that we have. And we don't actually get to enjoy it for what it is because we're still here wishing it was something else.
Yeah. So Sylvie, my wife, she has a beautiful quote that that over the years, a lot of people have resonated with. I'm going to mangle it a little bit, but it's something like, may I grieve my expectations of you so that I can be present for the love that is actually here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a couple of I've read this similar line over the years in a number of different books. One of them, Women Who Run with the Wolves. You ever read that book?
No, I haven't. I've actually heard of that though.
Beatrice,
I gotta read it. I'm gonna write it down.
That will be one of the most profound books. It is a masterpiece.
Okay.
And it is. I think all men should read it. It's another book you can kind of read different chapters. You don't have to necessarily read it straight through. But it's one of the most profound books I've ever read. It was incredibly life-changing for me. But there's a line in there where she says also, real relationship doesn't begin until you get over the fantasy of it.
I literally just read something of that a couple of days ago. That's crazy. Yeah.
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 And that we can't get over the fantasy if we aren't willing to grieve it. We can bury the fantasy and pretend it's not still part of our fantasizing, but we'll just keep holding our partner up to the standard of a fantasy they'll never, ever, ever, ever be able to live up to. No human can live up to the fantasies that we have of what a great relationship is. So it's not enough to just pretend we don't have that fantasy anymore. It's not enough to also just say, well, fuck it, I guess I'm not going to get it. I'll just deal with this human. And like, again, notice even like that turns bitter. You feel it in my body as I'm just articulating that. You can feel the resignation. We have to grieve it. We have to mourn the loss of that. We have to be with the sadness of it and just, wow, let that move through us and impact us. And an interesting thing, even Sylvie and I both at the beginning few years of our relationships, we both would have dreams about exes, like reconciliation dreams. even processing sadness and mourning and letting go, even while we're together. And we were able to just be open and talk about that and not make it a point of insecure of something's wrong. You're dreaming about an ex. What does that say about our current relationship? Oh no, you want to be with them, or you don't want whatever. No, 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 no. No, there's a shedding, there's a grieving, there's a letting go, and there's a beauty in it. We can hold that sadness and let that be a part of our journey together. And I think that's a beautiful journey to go on, even as a couple. The grieving of what was.
Yeah. And sometimes even within the relationship, it may not be what you thought it was going to be. Even the two of you, maybe you planned whatever. I think there's just so much release, I think, in that process. And I think, and I can already hear this question coming at me, but it's like, what does it look like to grieve? What is grief?
Yeah.
How do you move through it?
I think the simplest explanation is it's a willingness to just be with the sadness that's there, to not fight it, to not run away from it, to not pathologize it, to not make it mean something's wrong and we got to fix it or get over it or shove it down or hide it or pretend it's not there, but just a willingness to just Rumi has a great poem, The Guest House. Right? And I'm not going to recite it here, but The Guest House, where he talks about the human body as a guest house that's visited by all of these different emotions, and our job is to let them come and let them stay for the time that they'll stay, and let them go when they're ready to go. And look, and he says it very poetically. There are certainly grief rituals and practices that we can give ourselves to. One of my favorites is especially in the midst of our busy lives, is when you feel that sadness, when you feel the longing, or you feel some old pang. Again, what especially men, what we tend to want to do is just numb it out, turn away from it, through all kinds of different distractions.
Yeah.
And rather, I say, pull out your phone, set a timer for 10 minutes, and just sit there and feel it. Just let yourself feel it. Let yourself just feel it. Let yourself feel the heaviness, the heartache, I think a lot of us are afraid that if we do that, it'll never leave. And look, as a 50-year-old man that didn't really start doing this until my 40s, I get we're sitting on a lifetime of unmetabolized grief. So yeah, we start opening up to that. It can feel like it'll never, ever, ever stop, because now we're grieving the father we never had, like you said, the father that we wanted but never had, or the mothering we never got, or the teenage heartbreak that no one ever helped us get over. They just told us to get over it, and so we did, but we're still, there's still a part of us that's like, fuck, that hurt. Yeah. I'm still hurting, right? And so the fears that we'll be revisited by all of that, and it'll be a tsunami we never recover from. And I just don't. That's just not really generally what happens, though. It's I think that I think a healthy life incorporates. There's this a friend of mine studied with the San Bushmen in Africa, tribal indigenous peoples, and they had weekly grief rituals, weekly rituals to help move grief, and big rituals. But their approach was, grief is like a faucet you never want to fully turn off. Just you want to leave it to drip.
Yeah.
There's always, I worked with a couple that every weekend they'd go down to Malibu and go surfing. And at the end of the day, wife would start to get sad. The sun's going down, and the husband would lose his shit because he couldn't deal with her sadness. He'd get angry, like, the fuck is wrong with you? It's just the sun going down. There's nothing to be upset and sad about. And, she's just like, well, I'm just sad. The day's over. And he's like, well, the day ends every day. That kind of thing. Like, what the hell? I don't want to deal with this.
It's funny.
This is a perfect example of the unwillingness.
Yeah.
I think her heart is touching something real. The day is over. If it was a beautiful day, they surfed, the beauty, it's coming to an end. But for him, And look, he was a veteran of combat, a lot of trauma, a lot of like, you open that it's like, I think the fear for him is you open that spigot and it's going to
It's
be a
like,
raging torrent
mhm,
that I can't shut off.
mhm.
And so I have great compassion for his predicament, but it's a perfect example of the inability to grieve. I mean, they fought like crazy because of that moment.
Wow.
Right. And other couples will experience it just at the end of the night. One partner
Mhm.
wants to turn off the light and the other one wants to keep it on and keep connecting
And keep talking.
and keep talking.
Uh,
So,
No, that's funny. That's all. I think it's a feminine characteristic too. It's like we just want more. We're like we just want more connection, and so when that ends,
yeah,
we're like, but
yeah,
wait.
yeah.
I'm curious too if grief is also tied to, because we touched on this earlier about men maturing and growing up essentially a little bit later, and I sense there's also resistance there, and I wonder if a lot of that is tied to grief for a lot of men, because I mean, I hear this all the time. It's like, where are all the good men? Where are the men that want relationships? Like I hear this from women a lot. Um and in many ways they're not wrong. Like they're the majority of men, I think, struggle with some of these things, like the commitment,
Yeah.
the going from me to we, and not wanting to lose themselves. I hear that with male clients I have. Is like, I don't want to lose myself in this relationship.
Yeah.
And we struggle with, going from independence to interdependence and not codependence. So I'm curious to know, from your perspective, why? Like why is that such a thing right now for men, and why growing up is in essence tough, or
Yeah.
I don't know, like there's just it's not happening at the rate that women would like for it to happen.
Well, you said something really profound, that fear. I don't want to lose myself.
Mhm.
The thing that stands out for me is the only way you can lose yourself is if you don't know who you are.
Wow.
If you know who you are, you can't lose yourself. There'll be challenges, there'll be things to figure out, but you're not going to lose yourself. You just can't, because you know this is who I am.
That is such a good point. Like I've actually never thought about it that way, but it is so true.
Right.
And you can
Right.
always come back to you. Even if you drift, it's like if you know you can come back to it, because it's life. There might be moments you have a kid, things
Of
will tweak you
course.
from that, but at your core, wow, that's like
Yeah.
such a huge thing. It's yeah, you have to have that sense of self to come back to. Otherwise, what are you
And
coming back to?
exactly. And you, again, the fear of losing yourself is born out of a disconnection from self,
Mm,
right? And Terry Real, the psychologist who specializes
great.
also in working with men, he's
Yeah.
fantastic. He identified the original wound in boys, in men, is disconnection.
Mm,
Right? As boys, we're disconnected from our emotions, from our feelings. We're not allowed to share, or we get ridiculed for sharing what's really going on for us, for our sensitivities.
mhm.
Um, And so we grow up then into our adult relationships totally disconnected from ourselves. And then, of course, I'm afraid of losing myself. Well, I've already fucking lost myself. And
Yeah.
I'm in the fears. Well, I'm not going to find myself in connection with this other person because I already don't
Yeah.
know who I am. I'm
Yep.
just going to lose myself even more. So uh, that, 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 that story, that fear has its genesis in our childhood.
Mhm.
We're disconnected young.
Mm.
And so when men don't do the work of connecting back to themselves,
Mhm.
yeah, we are going to struggle in relationships, because how the hell am I going to connect to a woman when I can't even connect to myself?
Mhm.
Right? Men will use women in an attempt to feel alive, to feel connected, and we will for a weekend. Any guy can do relationship for a Saturday,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And have the but stay for Sunday and Monday and Tuesday and the mundaneness of a life with somebody and
Mhm.
the things that have to be navigated and confronted.
Mhm.
And um, I think men aren't, our culture does not encourage men to really connect with what's going on for themselves. We
No.
we don't do that. with quite the opposite, actually.
It's not celebrated. The opposite is celebrated.
The opposite is celebrated. And I mean, even in the larger social, there's this idea, this pretty growing, I don't know if it's growing in popularity, but certainly a resurgence of, men should be men and women should be women. And by the way, what that means is, a man should lead, and a man should have his shit figured out, and a man should be able to, have his career and his money, and he needs to provide, and woman needs to stay at home and be a mom. That's what she's supposed to be. And that's what her passion is. And obviously it's, a lot of men saying this. And it's just, again, it's another doubling down on, don't find out who you really are. I'll tell you who you are. Right. I can't remember who said that, but somebody says something, maybe Carl Jung says, like, if you don't know who you are, the world will tell you who you are.
Oh yeah. If you let it, it will. Yeah.
It will tell you who you are. And so, again, I have a lot of compassion for men in relationships, for women as well. I mean, you were talking about adolescence and the women, you get your period in your early teens. There's a threshold crossing. There's a biological threshold crossing into womanhood. Men don't have that. Men don't have a visceral, one moment to the next, everything changes, biological shift. We don't experience that. We need more of a psychological initiation that we don't get.
Yeah.
We don't get that. The closest I got to the psychological initiations were fraternity in college, Hell Week, being hazed, but that's just boys initiating boys.
Literally.
and then the military. And the military is a form of initiation. It teaches you to take responsibility, even for that which you are not responsible, to serve your country, to put yourself aside. Like there's some, I think, healthy psychological development in that, but there's also a lot of shadow in the military initiation. There's again, talk about a denial, a disconnection of self, disconnection from self. I was in the military for 10 years and I couldn't feel a goddamn thing when I got out at 26. I literally couldn't feel my body. I couldn't cry, which that's common for a lot of guys, but I also couldn't really laugh. And that's something a lot of men don't talk about. The inability to really experience joy. Right? So, again, do relationship from that place with a woman. Good luck.
Yeah.
Shit show. I don't know. Is this answering your question?
Yeah. No, I think it's all really, really relevant to that. And I think that's why I think women, there's just a lot of frustration, right? I think this is also why we get stuck in a lot of situationships, right? And again, I'm not blaming men for this. I'm just saying this is kind of the dynamic that plays out. Women yearn for connection. Men kind of fear the connection for sense of loss of self. And then we get into this dynamic, like you said, like, yeah, for a weekend I can feel connected and this sounds great, right? And so I hear a lot about that when it comes to situationships, because men, there's almost like a safety men feel in that because there's no commitment, essentially. But I get all the benefits and I get to feel connected, without... Can I go ahead.
Interrupt you just for a second, only because there's a question that you sent me that's related. What you're pointing at it here, and in preparing for this, the question about men fearing connection and do women fear the need for connection? Remember that question?
Yes, that was So I was like, men fearing the connection, and then women fearing the need for the connection, like they don't want to be dependent on it.
Okay, so the reason that I wanted to highlight this is because I'm going to come back to Terry Real. The original wound in men is disconnection. As I read your question, I was like, wow. I mean, I'd never really heard it put the way that you put it, the fearing the need for connection. But when I thought Terry Real said something about the original wound in women, do you know what he said about that?
No.
Disempowerment.
Which, yeah.
Oh, the need for connection is disempowering. To be needy.
Yeah.
To need something you don't have, and a guy is going to be the source of it. And, think about girls, right? It's better to be a boy. What do you hear? Only girls cry. It's bad to cry.
Yeah.
You hear
and the hyper independence that women are facing now in our society, right? And um personally, I think I'm more of a traditionalist in that sense, but I think the hyper independence hasn't really served women in many cases. I don't think there's anything wrong with being independent, but it's this hyper, like, did everything on myself. We feel like we can't rely on someone, and like again, it erodes the interdependence in a relationship. So now we have, something I always say a lot is like when I look at like our dating world is everyone's dating on the defense because I think both people are like, well, I don't want to need you because I hear that a lot. Like I was just, I don't know. Do you ever watch? You probably don't, but do you ever watch Love Is Blind?
Of course.
Okay, you do. Okay, so
for guilty pleasure.
yeah, so the most recent, which was total a shit show, but the most recent season, one of the girls, I'm forgetting her name, but she was like, "I don't need you. I don't." She just kept saying it over and over, and it just that's what it reminded me of. Is like, oh, we have this like as women of like, well, I'm independent. I've got my job. I've got my life. I've got everything. I can support myself. I don't need you, but I want you. And men are like, well, then what the hell am I here for? What do you mean you don't need me? Like we should want to need each other in a healthy way. But we've now twisted that narrative as we can't need each other. And it's only creating like, we're just living in silos. Like we have this idea that we just don't need anyone. And it's like, we were built to live in community. Like, I really believe that. Like, I believe that we were not made to live in these silos and live totally alone, but that's how we act in relationship. And so, yeah, I think that like that there's this fear that if, as a woman, if I need a man, it's in any case of my life, and I'm not woman enough, or I'm not independent enough. And I'm, and I think that's been a disservice to women, I think in many ways.
Well, I see things through a developmental lens, right? Developmental. We're coming from an era, a prolonged era where women were property.
Yep.
Women were forced to just be moms. Women could not get out of a bad marriage. Women didn't have sexual freedom. They didn't have bodily freedom. And there's even pressure to go back in that direction, even here in the land of the free.
Yeah.
We're coming out of that era. And I think, you're absolutely right. We need each other. We're tribal creatures. Nobody functions as an independent. I was thinking, again, looking through your questions, and you asked that question about the myth of independence is like, I'm drinking a coffee, and, how many people had to participate in getting me that cup of coffee, even though I'm the one that, put it in the machine this morning and did it myself. But I mean, just to get that coffee into my refrigerator,
huge
for me to be able to do that. So many people. I'm dependent on so many people.
Yeah.
I needed so many. I'm not growing freaking coffee beans in my backyard in Los Angeles, right? I needed so many people to participate in getting me that coffee, and it's just everywhere. My dependencies on other people are everywhere. And so that is a fundamental truth. We need each other. But I think psychologically, when it comes to relationship, I'll give you an example. I think a lot of men only learn to be relational when they really get that their partner can leave them. In other words, it's like when they get that she actually doesn't need me in the old ways that women needed a man.
Yeah.
That it doesn't need me for my money, doesn't need me for my status, doesn't need me for whatever social benefit I give her, doesn't need me for whatever, land ownership, whatever. I think on some psychological level, even myself, I mean, I'm a relationship guy. I'm monogamous. I want to build a great relationship with one woman. And it's healthy in my psyche to know that my wife could leave me if I don't lean in if I don't do the work it takes, because I naturally will lean out. My natural disposition as more avoidant, as more masculine freedom oriented is like, I will choose, and just the programming of the culture, everything, I'll choose freedom every day, all day. And a part of me will sacrifice the relationship for it. if I think my wife is just going to stay no matter what, like she needs me in that old sense,
Mm,
honestly, there's a part of me that's going to get really fucking lazy and
mm,
take her for granted. So I think there is a healthy psychological evolution of women being able to cultivate independence, of women not depending on men for money. No, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think
mm,
the fact that a woman can earn her own way in this is of vital importance. If women couldn't do that, we'd be even worse behaviors. We'd be even worse actors than sometimes we already are, I
mm,
think.
mm,
So it's like it's not either or, it's not it's like again, I look at it as an evolution. There's
mhm,
one of my teachers, David Data, would have said it like in this in have you heard of the 3 stages model of relationship?
I don't think
It
so.
might sound familiar.
Yeah.
You've probably heard it in some way. We start in codependence, which is that's the neediness. I
Yes.
need you.
First. Mm-hmm.
I need you in order to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have you, if you don't talk to me a certain way or touch me a certain way or think of me a certain way or do what I want you to do, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
mess,
Yep.
right? I can't
Mm-hmm.
function. That's codependence ultimately.
Yeah.
No relationships are enjoyable in a codependent
Mm-mm.
mindset, right? So independence is the second stage. The pathway out of codependence isn't just suddenly realizing we're interdependent. We can't get there. Psychologically, we can't, it doesn't make sense. It's still codependence,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have to individuate. We have to become our own individual. This is again where I know who I am. I learn what matters to me. I learn what my boundaries are. I
Mm-hmm.
learn what's okay and what's not okay, right? Brene Brown.
Yeah.
A boundary is what is okay and what is not okay. Whether I'm a woman or a man, I have to be able to say, you know what? This relationship isn't working for me. I'm feeling violated, or I'm violating my own boundaries, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying yes to that anymore. I need to be able to say no, right? That's an independent mindset. Like I know who I am. I know what matters to me, and I can invite you into a relationship. But if you're gonna do things in a way that where I'm just not feeling nourished every day and over time, like I'm not doing this anymore,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think every adult needs the agency to be able to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Where what I think you're pointing at is our culture has stopped there
Mm-hmm.
as the ideal.
Yeah.
And it's only a halfway point. It's a midway point. It's not the end of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Because the end of the story, or at least the evolution of the story, is in stage 3. It's like, okay, I know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I have good boundaries. I know what's important to me, and I know what's not so important. Like I know what my uh, non-negotiable needs are. Everything else is negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I can enter into a relationship again in an honest and an open way,
Yeah.
and I can allow myself to need a person, to depend on someone.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of paradoxical. It's like I need my wife, but also I don't need her.
Mm-hmm.
I would be devastated if my wife were to leave me, or we were to break up, or of course she were to die or something. I would be so disoriented, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I'm Mr. Independent such that, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if she goes away, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
No, it would fucking wreck me for years.
Yeah.
Um, and though there's a part of that I've cultivated though, that it's like, I still know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's a willingness to give myself, to need my wife, to
Mm-hmm.
need her, and allow her to need me.
Yeah.
It's like an allowing versus in that first stage, there's no allowing, there's only demanding, there's obligation. It's like
Yeah.
in that codependent need, there's relationship is done as an obligation. You have to do it this way.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
in that third stage of needing, relationship becomes an invitation.
Yep.
And so I think that's just the nuance that I would add to that.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think that I think it's the dance. And I think this goes back to full circle what we were talking about earlier is having that sense of self before the relationship, you know, that allows you to kind of depend on something, that allows you to be more willing and open to know, I know I'm good and I'm, self, that I can invite someone else in and depend on them, let them depend on me a little bit, I think that at the core that's so vital.
Yeah, and look, the longer you're in relationship, I mean, I'm 10 years with Sylvie. I'm a different person because of her
Mm-hmm.
influence. I'm not, I mean, there's a core me that's been there for since I was a teenager, maybe even there's a I wrote a mission statement when I was in the military at 21 years old for my life, and it was about helping humanity awaken to love and consciousness and all this stuff, and blah blah blah. That still is true for me. That still is a core part of who I am. I could not be with a woman who did not support me doing the work I do.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact. I tried, and that was a disaster. It didn't go well. I cannot be with a woman who doesn't support that core. But in terms of who I am as a man, how I function in the world, um, how I write, how I do my work, how I write, the things I write about, the things I care about, the things that matter to me. Like a lot of that is as a result of Sylvie's influence on me.
Mm-hmm.
She's helped me become a different person who is more relational, be influenced. So, and I think that is a beautiful intermingling. I think that is the gift of relationship. We become more than we would ever be able to become just left to our own selves.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
So it's very paradoxical,
it is. It is the
Yeah.
wonderful intricacies of relationship.
Yeah.
Like it's not black and white, and yeah, I think that's beautiful.
Can I read this?
Yeah, please.
This is a Joseph Campbell quote that my therapist actually shared with me. That I posted. Let me pull it up. I posted it on Instagram
Yeah, let's hear it.
because it was just so profound. It's called "The Value of Marriage." This is Joseph Campbell.
Wait, I loved that. I just saw that yesterday, a couple days ago. Yes, no,
It's
read this.
so
This
rich.
is so. I actually sent it to people. That's what's so funny.
Yeah,
It's
so
please read it. It's such a beautiful depiction of what marriage really is.
so this is from Joseph Campbell. A love affair, and for me, a love affair is even a weekend relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right? But a love affair has to do with immediate personal satisfaction. But marriage is an ordeal. It means yielding time and again. That's why it's a sacrament. You give up your personal simplicity to participate in a relationship. And when you're giving, you're not giving to the other person, you're giving to the relationship. And if you realize you are in the relationship just as the other person is, then it becomes life building, a life fostering and enriching experience, not an impoverishment because you're giving to somebody else. This is the challenge of a marriage. What a beautiful thing is a life together as growing personalities, each helping the other to flower, rather than just moving into the standard archetype. In other words, rather than just a man becoming more of a man, what a man's supposed to be, and a woman becoming just a mother, right? The standard archetype. It's a wonderful moment. Excuse me. It's a wonderful moment when people can make the decision to be something quite astonishing and unexpected rather than cookie mold products. It's exactly what we're talking about.
It's beautiful.
It's
like I said, it's the beauty of partnership, of marriage and it's also like this allowing the other person to become who they're going to be and let them grow and be the support for that. And I think again that goes with this is a full circle of going with the grief of like you don't I Timothy Keller, he passed away a couple years ago, but he was a pastor and he did a whole series on marriage. Fantastic book. His perspective on marriage was very real, biblically centered, but very, very real. And in that he talks about like you don't really know who you're going to marry. Because the person you marry today is not going to be the person you married 10 years from now or 20 years from now. And so he's like, you go into marriage as a leap of faith, right?
Yeah.
The covenant of marriage is saying that I will love who you become also. I will learn to love the new versions of you.
Yeah.
And what a privilege that is to be a front row seat to someone's development and someone's evolution, to be that support system for someone. And I think if we shifted our perspective to that of, again, letting go of what we think it's supposed to be, letting go of who we want our partners to be, but just being there and allowing them to just develop who they're, develop into the person that they're meant to be, and be there to be supportive of that. I think that quote kind of encapsulates that. It's like, don't put each other in a mold, but really be there to allow that to kind of evolve. And that's hard because that's a risk. You don't know who the person's going to be. And
It's the
I think,
hardest.
yeah, that's marriage is a risk, and we
It's
have
an
to go
ordeal.
into it. It's an
I
ordeal.
love what Joseph he just comes out. It's an ordeal.
Yeah.
It is an arena within which I see relationships as a spiritual path,
Yeah.
because we really have to overcome. I love, he said, our personal simplicity. We give up our
Hmm.
personal simplicity. What a beautiful
Yeah. It's
sense.
so
And
that
yeah,
it's so true because I think a common thing I hear a lot is well, I feel so healed and great when I'm single. Yeah, because life is simple when you're single.
that's right. Personal
Right. And
simplicity.
yeah, it's personal simplicity. Everyone's like,
Yeah.
I thought I was secure. I have clients that come to me, they're like, I'm secure. And then suddenly they're like, why am I anxious or why am I avoidant?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's like there's the giving that, that simplicity up. And so anyway, I think that beautiful quote to kind of wrap up this conversation. I thank you so much for this conversation.
Welcome. Thank you,
It was
Beatrice.
beautiful. And I think, just the realities and complexities of relationship from all perspectives. And I appreciate you coming on and having this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. I think these are some of the most important conversations that especially men need
Hmm.
to be having.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No,
thank you for the
yeah,
invitation.
I appreciate that. When I will add definitely in the show notes. I'll link your book as well because again, anyone who's interested in reading, this is a fantastic book. And like I said, what I love about it is you can kind of go in and just pick a essay. You don't have to go through the whole thing. It's not, I never read it that way. I always read it as like, I just went in and, picked a section to read, and just a really great resource to have for both
Can I
men
say
and women.
and can I say one last thing about
Yeah.
that? The title "Choose Her Every Day or Leave Her." I had someone write to me years ago and say you should change the title. It was a woman, I believe. You should change the title to "Choose Her Every Day, No Matter What." And I remember like thinking, yeah, I get it, but no,
No, like, yeah.
because first off, it is meant to be confronting,
Mm-hmm.
and it's meant to point out that it's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It is, at the end of the day, it's still a choice.
It
And if
is.
you're not up for that choice, man or woman,
Yeah.
then don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
I had a young man in his 30s say to me, he's like, Bryan, I look around and I see nobody I know is really happy in a relationship. So why would I do that? Why would I go into a relationship? And I said to him, I said, that's a great question. Until you can answer it for yourself, you probably shouldn't go into a relationship.
Facts.
Facts, but when you have that why, when you have your why, well, you can get through just about anything. When
Yeah.
you have your why, and when you're committed to leaning in and to working through the challenges, and you have a partner who is likewise committed, it's gonna be messy.
Mm-hmm.
You said it earlier, right? The couples that you interviewed, all of them had been through some ordeal. They had worked
Mm-hmm.
through stuff.
Yeah.
Sylvie and I, even just in our 10 years, we have been through a lot of pain. We have been through not even anything that either one of us did to the other, just the pain of life. We lost a baby that was never born. We moved cross country 3 times, and upheaving our lives and throwing us into instability. We haven't had a home for the last 2 years. We just moved into a home for the first time in 2 years, like a month ago.
Mm.
You know, it's like, yeah, oh my God, we've been through so much.
Mm-hmm.
Get ready for that. That's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy alone. You think it's going to be easier with the person at your side, but yeah, when they have a whole different agenda at times, when they when they want to live in LA and you want to live in Maryland, well, good luck figuring that shit out.
Yeah.
Navigate that. So just it's messy, and it's okay.
Messy.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Oh, well, I really appreciate it. Appreciate your time and this conversation. And yeah, I'll definitely I'll add all the notes in the description so everyone has that. But I'll add your Instagram. Please go follow Bryan. He's phenomenal. I love his work and his book. And this is a like I said, this is a very full circle moment for me because I found you early on, and I didn't, like I said, I didn't have a podcast, I didn't have coach, I didn't have any of that. And so this morning I really had to be like, wow, this is like this is like a big moment for me, and just the fact that like I'm now in the space and I'm, pursuing the thing that I really, really feel called to and feel deeply about. And to get to talk to somebody that like was kind of a pivotal, point for me, really means a lot. So I really appreciate that.
I'm honored. Well, I wish you the best of luck on your ongoing journey, and both professionally and personally.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that so much.